Hello everyone, my name is Jennifer and welcome to Best Kept Plans. Today's video is going to be a reading recap for June 2024. If you're interested in seeing what books I read last month, please stick around. As I said in my introduction, this is my reading recap for June 2024. June was definitely a month of highs and lows with regards to my reading. And as I make my way through the books that I read last month, you're definitely going to see that. I, as usual, will be referencing my Archer and Olive Sarah Cray collab journal. This is where I keep all of the information about the books that I read every month. This is actually the last month that I'll be in this journal. I'm going to be switching to a new journal for the second half of 2024. Let's get to talking about the books that I read in June, the first of which I don't physically have with me because I lent my copy to one of my friends, and that is Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. I continued a trend that I started in May by listening and physically reading this book at the same time. I've realized that I really like doing that, and I did that with Just for the Summer. I really enjoyed the book in general. I also enjoyed the audiobook as well. I loved our two main characters. I particularly liked how sweet and kind and caring our male main character was in this book. I knew that this had so much hype going into reading it, and I was really curious if it was going to live up to that. I wanted to know if this was going to be a 5-star read as well, and I will say it was. I really loved it. I highly recommend it. I think she just does so well with melding together romance and comedy, but also harder hitting topics that allow us to feel like the characters have a lot of depth to them and that their relationship is deep and not just surface level or physical at all. And all of that really came together in this one, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. After finishing Just for the Summer, I wanted to pick up another kind of lighter, fluffier romance because I was actually away for a beach weekend when I read Just for the Summer, and I was still on the beach when I picked up Addicted to You by Krista and Becca Ritchie. I have heard so much about the Addicted series, the Calloway Sisters series, and have been really wanting to dive into it for a long time. So getting the opportunity to do so, I was really excited. I was really looking forward to reading this. And I will say, I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. This was definitely a very middle of the road read for me. Obviously, our two main characters in here are dealing with some very difficult things, and I would definitely look up trigger warnings before going into this book or going into the series. They definitely have a very codependent and unhealthy relationship, I would say, and they're both individually going through some very difficult and challenging things. I haven't continued this series since picking this up in early June. I want to, but I'm also hoping that it gets better. I assume that it does because of the way that I hear so many people talk about this series. As a standalone book, I wasn't super impressed by this. It was a 3 out of 5 stars, middle of the road book for me. The next book that we're going to talk about is one that I have been very much looking forward to. I was fortunate enough to receive a digital ARC of this book, and I immediately went out and picked up a physical copy after I finished because I loved it so much, and that is the Rom-Commers by Katherine Center. I loved this book. I really did, and part of me honestly wonders how Katherine Center pulled that off, because at the beginning of this book, I was so furious and frustrated with our male main character and his treatment of our female main character. He says some really rude things to her at the beginning of the book, and quite honestly throughout. But somehow, even though he does, Center manages to make the reader understand that there is something behind that there is feeling there, that there's connection there, and it does kind of all come together in the end, and I ended up really, really enjoying this. I was hoping to really enjoy this. I loved Hello Stranger last year. I didn't love The Bodyguard as much. After reading this, I will highly be anticipating every new release she comes out with, and I will automatically be reading it. I gave this 5 out of 5 stars. Very exciting to have 2 5-star reads so early in the month, considering that in March and April, I had no 5-star reads, and I think in May I only had 1. After reading the Rom-Commers, we went from a very high to a very low with my next read, which was Running Close to the Wind by Alexandra Rowland. I received a physical arc of this, but also an advanced listening copy, and so I was listening and reading at the same time. And whenever I get access to an arc, I try my hardest to read the entire thing. I don't like not finishing a book that I was fortunate enough to receive an arc for. But at about 30% of the way into this book, I just couldn't do it anymore. I wasn't connecting. It wasn't vibing. I didn't get it. I wasn't enjoying it at all. And I have looked online, and this book has some pretty good reviews. So I don't know if it's just a case of wrong book at the wrong time or something like that, but I just couldn't see myself continuing on with this beyond the 30% mark. And so I did end up DNFing it. After that low, I really didn't have any idea what I wanted to read, but I had several arcs that were getting closer to their release date, and I knew I wanted to read them and get reviews up before the release date. So I pushed myself to pick up another one of those. And this one in particular, I thought would be good to start with because it is a middle grade book, and that is Codename Kingfisher by Liz Kessler. I generally don't get middle grade books sent to me, but this was sent to me by Aladdin. Thank you so much to them for that. I recently just filmed my mid-year reading recap, and I talked about this book, and I couldn't talk about it because this book was so incredibly touching and moving to me. This hit me emotionally so deeply that it's a little hard for me to verbally describe how I feel about it. And I don't want to get emotional right now as I'm talking about it. Honestly, I just love this. I loved this so much. And this is the kind of book where I just pray that this is something that is required reading for this age group that it's meant for, because I really feel like this could be such an incredible reading experience for so many middle grade students. And I hope that this is the content that middle grade students are getting right now, because this was so good. It was just so good, and I loved it so much. And yeah, I highly recommend it. It's middle grade, I know, but I highly recommend it. I haven't read a middle grade book since I was in middle grade probably, and I loved it. I loved it so much. This was 5 out of 5 stars, hands down. Next, I picked up another physical arc that I received. This one came to me from Celadon Books, and I've had some decent luck with Celadon Books in the past, so I was really looking forward to this. I also received an advanced listening copy, so I did listen and physically read at the same time, and that is Honey by Isabel Banta. It's a story that takes place in the 90s, early 2000s. It's a story about an American singer who wants to be a pop star. It's similar vibes to the Britney, Christina, NSYNC kind of genre and era of artists. And it was a really interesting read. I definitely enjoyed it. Like, I had a good time reading this, and I thought that the audiobook was good. The only thing that I wish from the audiobook perspective, there's several parts in this book where we're lyrically getting the narrator narrating words to a song, and like it's the entire song, verses, chorus, verse, chorus, verse, chorus, like it's going all the way through. And I really wish in the audiobook they would have like made real songs, because it's just the narrator speaking the lyrics and there's like a weird random beat in the background. But if they would have actually like gotten a musical artist, a producer to like create a song and like gotten a singer to sing them on those parts, I think it would have brought the audiobook to the next level. And I think it really would have impacted my enjoyment of the book and given it a higher rating. I rated 3.5 out of 5 stars. Again, I didn't dislike it. I actually enjoyed this quite a bit. The next book that I picked up is on my 24 books in 2024 reading challenge. I'm a little bit behind on that reading challenge, so I knew I wanted to pick up at least one book on that list of 24 books this month. And the book that I ended up picking up was Throne of the Fallen by Kerri Maniscalco. I have never read a book by this author before. This book was steamy and spicy, like way steamier and spicier than I thought it was going to be. I listened to this and read this physically, and I thoroughly enjoyed going through this book that way. It was very compelling. Like the story was interesting from like a plot perspective. Our characters, I definitely think, are very interesting. There was this ever-building tension that I really enjoyed. And I had a really good time with this. I really liked this. I'm assuming this is going to become a new series, but I honestly don't know for sure. And if it is, I don't know if it's going to follow these two characters as the main characters, or if it'll switch up and follow maybe one of our male main characters' other brothers. But I would be happy with either or probably, because I really enjoyed these characters, but there were some other ones that were introduced that I could definitely get behind as well. It is incredibly like hot and muggy outside today. There's like not even good sunlight. That's why I'm filming in this spot, because it was like the brightest light I can find. And I feel like I'm glistening even though the air is on, and it's like not even hot in my home, and I don't know what's going on. But anyways, let's talk about the next book that I read. This one I was definitely excited for. And I was fortunate enough to get a physical arc of this from Bloom, so thank you so much to them. And that is Love Unwritten by Lauren Asher. I am always excited for a new Lauren Asher release. I really like the Dreamland Billionaire series by her, especially the first 2 books. And the first book in this series, Love Redesigned, I thoroughly enjoyed. I think I gave it 4.5 out of 5 stars. I liked it so much. So I was definitely really excited for this one. I knew this was going to be single dad trope as well, which I don't mind a single dad in a book, though I knew this was also going to be nanny trope, and I didn't know how I felt about that. What I will say is this is not my favorite book by Lauren Asher. This is not my favorite book in this Lakefront Billionaire series. I enjoyed it, but I think it dragged on too long. Like, this is a chunker of a book. I don't think it needed to be this long. I also struggled a little bit with character motivations in this one. So we have a female main character who has a challenging past, and I do think that Lauren Asher did a really good job with her care in that subject matter. I do. But when it came to our male main character, I struggled, because I really don't love it when the motivation for a character is, I'm going to better myself for you. I'm going to better myself because I like you and I want to be with you. I'm not a big fan of that. And this kind of was that. So I gave this 3.5 out of 5 stars. It was good. It wasn't bad. I just wanted more in terms of the character motivation and maybe less in terms of the page length because of how drawn out it was at the end. The next few books that I read, I either did so digitally or I listened to the audiobook. So I'll be putting covers over here. And the next book was my Instagram challenge book for June 2024. Every month of the year, I listen or read one book that was recommended by someone on Instagram. And the book for June was A Flicker in the Dark by Stacy Willingham, which was recommended by Meg's Got a Plan. It's not that this book was bad. I didn't think it was bad. I just also didn't really love it. I listened to this, but I also followed along with it digitally because it is on Kindle Unlimited. And I thought it was an interesting concept, but I just felt like the execution ended up being a little misguided, I guess. I didn't feel like the twist came out of nowhere, but I also kind of rolled my eyes at it in the sense that I think that it could have, I think if a different character was chosen for the big twist, it would have made for a better book, honestly. And that's just my personal opinion, right? That's not going to be everyone's opinion. It was okay. I ended up giving this 3 out of 5 stars. Again, very middle of the road, not great, not terrible. The next book that I ended up picking up, I don't know why I did this. So I have never read any of the Bridgerton books. I do watch the show on Netflix. I enjoyed season 1. I loved season 2. And being totally honest, I really didn't enjoy season 3 very much. I'm just not a Colin girl. For some reason, after finishing season 3, I got this weird urge to start reading the books. And so I knew that the first few, at least the first few, are available on Kindle Unlimited. So I decided to pick up The Duke and I by Julia Quinn. Now, I've heard that these books are not great. Like, I've heard that they're very problematic. And I went into them with that mindset. I also was able to borrow the audiobooks for these from my library through Hoopla. So I listened and read along digitally at the same time. To me, the first book was very similar to the first season of the show, which I'm glad that they did a good job at adapting it for television. There was one storyline that was included in the show that wasn't included in the book in terms of this like prince that the queen brings over for Daphne. I thought that the book was fine without that. I just cannot get behind what happens towards the end of this book with Daphne and what she does to Simon. I didn't like it in the show. I didn't like it in the book. Never gonna like it. Never gonna like it. With that being in the book, I gave the book 2.5 out of 5 stars. So that's how I feel about that one. I did immediately decide to go into the next Bridgerton book though. I again listened and read along at the same time for this one. I did like this book better. There was definitely some differences between this book and this season of the show. It didn't take what was going on between Anthony and Kate's sister as far as the show did, and I like that better. I will say the declaration that Anthony does in the show that like most people go gaga over, that I go gaga over because I love it, is not in the book. The line, that like infamous line, is in the book, but it's just through narration. He's not like saying it to her or anything. So that was a big bummer. And I'm so glad that the show changed that because I think that was the way to go. I did like this more than the first book, and I ended up giving it 3.5 out of 5 stars. The last book that I read in the month of June was one that was also on my 24 books in 2024 reading challenge, and that is The St. Ambrose School for Girls by Jessica Ward. I'm filming this video on June 30th, and I actually finished it today. I started it yesterday. I read it physically along with listened to it as an audiobook, and I think I was able to get through it that quickly because I did that. Because if I was just physically reading this, I think it would have been a very slow read for me. I didn't hate this, but I didn't love it. I do think that there were some things that the author did that were interesting. The way that she depicts our main character's mental state, it was quite interesting, especially in audiobook form. But overall, the story was just kind of meh to me. And it was very, to me, paint by numbers in terms of the stereotypical way in which these high schoolers are depicted in our manufactured by this author to fit into certain archetypes, and that just totally took away from the reading experience for me. And so I ended up giving this 3 out of 5 stars. First book by Jessica Ward, but again, similar to Stacy Willingham, probably not someone that I'll look for again for a mystery thriller. It is definitely getting drearier and drearier outside as I'm filming this video, so if the lighting is getting worse and worse, I apologize, but we are done with all of the books that I read this month. I did just want to quickly go through my top 3. I'm really enjoying coming up with the top 3 every month. I had 3 5 stars this month. I'm super, super happy about that. Of those 3 5 stars, in third place is going to be Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. I loved this book, absolutely. I will say I think of the 3 books I've read by Abby Jimenez, this is probably my least favorite, but I still loved it. It was still 5 stars. It was still wonderful and amazing. So that's my number 3. Number 2 is going to be The Rom-Commers by Katherine. Again, I just don't know how she did it. I don't know how she made me love this book with how the male main character is in this book, but she somehow managed to do it. I don't know if I just felt so much for our female main character, but I loved it. It's my number 2 favorite book of the month. And then in the number 1 spot is Codename Kingfisher by Liz Kessler. Again, I love this book so much. And yeah, I just love it. Number 1 book of the month, absolutely, hands down, loved it. And that's going to be it for this video. I hope you all enjoyed watching me talk about the books that I read in June 2024. I'm hoping that July brings along just as many, if not more, 5-star reads for me. And if you've read any of the books that I talked about in this video, please don't hesitate to put a comment down below. If you've read the Addicted series, please tell me your thoughts on it down below. Spoiler-free thoughts, because I need some motivation to dive back into that series, with the first book being 3 out of 5 stars and me kind of not feeling super compelled to jump right back in. So please, please let me know. And as always, everyone, please be safe. Bye-bye.